Hello and welcome back to the Rainbow International podcast channel. I'm Ricardo Corvey and today I'm delighted to be with Coco, our salon director from the Bears Den salon. Again, running theme, I've worked with Coco pretty much most of my Rainbow Room career and we're kind of stories have intertwined over the years, but it's getting to the good bit because I didn't sort of work directly side by side that I'm going to be learning as much at the same time as you are. So without further ado, let's begin. So again, it's just a whole weird thing, and usually we are after an art team meeting or we've done a show or we've been somewhere amazing and or Beerasaurus in Tokyo and we're all just sitting having a laugh and a carry on. So I know this will feel weird for about 5 minutes and then you'll forget the cameras are there and the mics and William. Not that we ever forget you, William, obviously. And we'll just basically have a wee chat and tell the lovely people out there all about you. So, but obviously in Rainbow Room podcast tradition, you've got chocolate to pick. So are you either a Lindor or are you a Whisper Gold?
Lindor.
Lindor.
Yeah.
See, we knew you were a classy. We knew you were classy. There we go. So making a bit of a comeback then, because Whisper Gold was kind of taking a bit of a wee lead there. Right.
Cool.
So we're going to fast forward slightly in the story only because for the eagle-eyed viewers that have been watching the podcast, I've usually got some vinyl behind me that I pick. And I either pick it for purely selfish reasons that it's a record I adore or that I think will tie in with everybody's story. John, obviously, having done James Brown's hair, it was a bit obvious that we were going to have a James Brown record there. And David's a huge Queens of the Stone Age fan. So we had a bit of their vinyl up there. But Coco and I, when I first started as an assistant, basically we got to pick the tunes between 4 and 5 in B Street, didn't we?
We did.
We did, and I think we got it. I think
Happy
we did well. It was the happy hour at that time, and I think we always got it right. I think
100%.
The tunes were good.
Everything.
So I've deliberately left no vinyl, and I told Coco to come and bring one. So over to you. What have you got?
So, well, I thought I would do what you did with the chocolate.
Right.
Okay, so I've also...
Right.
Okay.
I got a wee tweak on one of them.
So you get to choose.
Right.
Obviously, The Cure.
Right.
Songs
obviously.
of the Lost World.
Yeah.
What an album.
Right.
Okay, so you can have this one.
Okay.
Up. Or... For you, I brought Tom Jones' Greatest Hits. I would like to just say that there was a little sticker on this, $2.99.
That's brilliant. I love that.
$2.99.
I've never taken,
Right.
my original
Tom
vinyl
Jones.
I bought, I've
Yeah.
never taken the prices off them, and it blows my mind.
So
Check Tom out. Right.
Tom,
Only
Yeah.
on the fact, is that a double gatefold as well? Does it open up?
yeah, it is, but it's stuck.
Oh no,
it's
don't.
that old,
Right,
so let's not.
don't touch it then. That is
But-
hilarious. No, it's got to be The Cure.
It's gotta be The
It's
Cure.
got to be The Cure. I can't
be The
possibly. You got the biggest Cure fan in the world. And I can't do that. But by the way, yeah. I love myself some Tom Jones. I actually went to see him. He was still unbelievable.
Yeah.
Alan sometimes gets a dry throat and all that. And I keep telling him to do the Tom Jones trick. Tom Jones has got 2 lozenges. He gets these throat lozenges. He keeps them in his mouth at all times, so it stops him from drying his.
Right?
Aye. Whenever he's on telly or he's singing or anything, he's got these wee things. But total hero. What's ironic about that is you and I do have that discussion that I do feel that Robert Smith's now at the same point as Tom Jones was, where he was still dyed his hair and wearing leather and getting pants thrown at them.
Be careful.
I know. I don't want to start this off in a bit, but I think the lippy and the hairdo's got to go and just stand by the power of the songs, and that was the same way. But I think that in fashion anyway. You know, that way I catch myself with a baseball hat, my trainers on, and all that, and go, really? You're 52, nearly baldy. Do you want to maybe not dress like you were when you were 17?
Music's music. I think a lot of people look at Robert Smith. Oh, the Cure.
Yeah.
But when you actually see them live, they are
Oh,
just
no,
like,
they're incredible. No, I think most people know that.
unbelievable.
I think this is the thing. I think what the underlying thing, especially our generation of sort of rainbowing people, is we're just all mad musos.
Yeah.
That, quite frankly, if we could have got a tune out of any hand or gob, we would all have been in a band rather than ever have been hairdressers.
But it's so important, isn't it? Music within your salon as well.
Yeah, and it's the minute it's off.
Yeah.
I actually get really angry's not the right word. I actually get really upset that my team don't hear that it's not playing.
Yeah.
Now, either they're super concentrated on what they're doing and they're super engaged with their clients. If that's the case, that's brilliant. But the idea that they don't care enough that the music's off, because that's just, I don't know, it's just been the backbone. It's actually one of the reasons why I wanted to be a hairdresser, because the idea, you got to sit and listen to tunes all day. It's great.
Absolutely.
And then you realise you've got to listen to somebody else's tunes. And then
that
you've got to
happen very often.
either got to be a manager or own your own salon, and then you get to pick. Right, anyway, enough about our complete and utter love for music. So, right, where does the story start?
Well, I was brought up in Coatbridge,
Yep.
Lanarkshire lass. There was my mum, my dad, brother, sister. My dad worked in the foundries. He RB tenants in the Wifflet in Coatbridge. He was like what you would call a kind of industrial plumber, if you like. It wasn't like sort of domestic plumbing. It was.
Wasn't it wee things? It was big things.
Big things.
Aye.
He worked with big things.
Yeah.
My mum, she worked for Mine Safety Appliances in Shawhead. She worked in the offices in there. And I've got a younger brother and an older sister who happens to work in the salon on Front House.
Brilliant.
In Bearsden now. So yeah, I went to school, Rose Hall High School in Coatbridge till 1984, I think it was when I left, which was a great day.
Was it? Did you just...
school just... I mean, anything to do with sport, I was 110%, but actually the concentration for actual classes I found really difficult. You know, I did find it quite difficult and quite boring, because I never really seen the point of a lot of it until I got older.
Well, that's it. And
it's always the same. So again, I was brought up in a family, you leave school, you get a job. So I really didn't know what I wanted to do. The first thing I did, it wasn't hair, it was actually makeup. I wanted to be like a makeup artist, but at that particular time it wasn't a thing. You know, there wasn't like makeup artists that you could go and learn just from them. It was more a case of you would need to go to beauty and learn the whole beauty thing, and that was all part of a package.
Because it's not even like there would be the brands in the shops now where somebody would be standing doing quick makeovers and all that kind of stuff, even just to retail stuff.
So that really wasn't a thing. So I decided to apply to college because they did hair and makeup. So I went to Hamilton. I got accepted to the actual hairdressing department was in Hamilton at the time, and I went there for 2 years. And I used to get the bus from Coatbridge into Hamilton every day, and I used to pass Rusks.
Right.
And I used to think, wow, that salon looks amazing. But I never really... I mean, I liked college, it was great, but at that time it was parums, and it was, you know, it was like you never get anybody young coming in. It was all kind of like perm and hair. There wasn't a lot of colouring. It was just mostly perming and setting hair. But the basics of it was very good. I struggled at the beginning because it took them a while to realise, for some reason, that I was left-handed.
Wow,
and I found that really difficult.
So were they just forcing you into holding everything the other way? I
was actually trying to put perm rods in with my right hand.
Wow, right.
Because I just thought that was what you did.
That's how you did it, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Bit stupid, but anyway. So I got through, I loved it. I loved everything. I really grew to love hairdressing. I loved learning about it. I loved learning about how the process of how hair dries, the process of perming hair, and the chemical processes that go on in the hair. So I really, really studied it. And when I left college, I left with top marks. I think for the first time I had actually got top marks in anything.
But of course you found your passion. You found something you were excited about, and then you put it into it. I mean,
absolutely.
My school career wasn't far different, but the weird thing for me was I really did really well in my hires, but it was only because all the subject matter. Yeah. Obviously I'd grown up a bit in that time as well, but the subject matter I loved. So I read the stuff, I was interested, I was into it. But that's fascinating that having left school, just not being into that at all, you flick the switch, because that's chemistry you're doing.
Yes.
Right? Whereas if you're sitting at school and you're like, no bother, it's biology you're doing.
It's the relevance to things, isn't it?
Exactly.
So
you're technical drawing, you're doing, you're doing all these things that you did at school that you're just like, oh, I'm not interested in that. But the minute it's like, well, I want to be able to do this thing, then obviously
then
it becomes...
all of a sudden it's relevant to what you are actually interested in. So that was massive for me.
Brilliant.
But again, hairdressing wise, I was still quite really quite wet behind the ears, and I didn't have a lot of confidence in myself. So I never went to the salons that I should have went to. I tended to just kind of, I don't want to go into these big salons and ask for a job. I just didn't know how to. But I did actually, one of the first jobs that I had was actually, I worked for one of my teachers that was at that taught at the college, and it was actually in Coatbridge, and it was just your typical, 20 perms a day going in. That's all I did was wind perms and neutralise them, and then it just gets boring. And but then of course John Parker. John was working with Roberto Coco at the time, and he loved it in there. And I remember the very first time I went to Salon International was actually with Roberto Coco, because he had designed a razor called the Slider. And we went down and we were actually helping to sell this slider, and it was just...
And you were working for him by that?
I never actually worked for Roberto.
Oh, right.
Because me and John were friends. Right. He was like, do you want to come down to London and we're going to sell it? Yeah, absolutely.
Wow, that's
so
amazing.
we went to London.
Right.
It was brilliant.
Right.
And it just opened my eyes. I was like, wow. Just all this incredible hair.
So what's this, about 86, 87 then? Is that kind of...
It would have been round about then. So, yeah. And then it really opened my eyes to what was out there. The creativity, the colours. I remember, obviously, Sassoons, and I remember Annie Humphreys, and I also Tim Hartley. Yeah. And I went to one of their shows actually, and it was amazing. It was breathtaking, because I loved the whole geometry of hair cutting, the geometrics, that beautiful Bauhaus bob, and just all the beautiful way that Annie Humphreys would colour that hair to bring it alive. It was just... It was
always the one Alan said, that if you're at Salon and they're doing a theatre show, I'm lucky enough he took me to one, and I got to see it, and I don't think it was long before they stopped doing them. So I was super lucky, and obviously that's before then we were really lucky to get him to come up to the academy, which was just unbelievable. But to see those two and doing that, and to get that inspiration for them is huge, and to get it right at the start is fantastic. Yeah,
and that was I need to know what I'm doing, because you're still very, we didn't have blockheads back then. It was just all your friends, your family,
willing victims.
My family had the worst haircuts in the world. Oh, looked like there was something wrong with them.
They were
Like,
just ahead of their
fringes up to
time.
here.
Ahead
Oh,
of their time.
Sit down, I've not finished. You know, but it was the only way to learn.
Yeah.
You know, so you're kind of experimenting. And of course, then, you know, you don't have Pinterest, and it was magazines, and I would just get a picture and I would sit a picture down. I went, right, let me think, how would I do that? Right, okay, sit down.
Yeah.
And then I would just, off you would go. So I loved all that. And then eventually John had came to the Rainbow Room, and he was there about, and he says, you need to get in here. He says, you will love it.
Yeah.
And I went, yeah, okay. But again, just really nervous about it. And I remember going for the interview. I was so scared.
And did you go, was your interview in 15?
My interview was in 15.
Yeah.
And it was with Linda. And I just always remember just having this beautiful long dark hair, you know, it's just like, and just walking in, and I had two models, and actually, if I remember right, John took me through how to do. I had an older model in, and then I had a younger model in, and he took me through that haircut so that I could get that right for the interview.
Brilliant. That's amazing.
That's
isn't it?
like, because I was so nervous.
It's all these wee legacy bits
But yeah,
that I love when you find these things out. You know, that way. That's the bit that kind of comes out of all of these things for me. These tiny little moments of teamwork before it actually got to the stage that we all grew up to is fantastic.
yeah. So, and then, it was the funny thing happened. So after the interview, I thought, that was it was such a sense of achievement for me to, like, because it was the first time I think I'd been to an interview where it was like a proper interview. Like it was like a real serious job. Yeah. You know, this is
and
what
how many salons
it was.
Had you
This
been
is
in?
what we can do for you.
Any salons had you been in at that point then? Had you
I'd been in quite a lot of salons,
right.
all quite small salons, and
just
nothing,
knowing that it wasn't you,
and just thinking I think if I hadn't got into the Rainbow Room, I would have given up hairdressing.
Wow, really?
Yeah, because I just didn't have the confidence.
Wow.
Which is
what a loss that'd have been.
Which is
just that's incomprehensible.
Yeah, just
you know
really, and a lot of people don't believe me, but I really didn't have a lot of confidence.
Yeah.
But I knew it was what I wanted to do, so I did work in lots of little salons. But I think probably the best one was I met a girl called Ellen who worked. She opened a salon and it was a way out in Partick, but I thought, no, I'm just going to travel every day on the train for Coatbridge. I took the job, and she worked in Sweeney Todd's.
Right,
That's where she came from.
Yeah.
And I worked with her for a while, and she was great. Like, she was like the first person you would go into town. I would go into town with her, because you're still so young, and you're coming for like, sort of Coatbridge, and
it's kind of a nice wee bridge.
Yeah.
Kind of almost from being at home
yeah.
to doing that one to then having the guts to go into 15 and do the interview and everything.
And she was great. She taught me a lot about hairdressing and an understanding more of what I was actually doing. So that was good. And then of course I came to the Rainbow Room.
Yeah.
But there's a funny story behind that as well, because when Linda had said to John one day, Janine obviously is my full name, she's not interested in coming to work, and John's like, well, she never got a letter. But apparently, like, the reception had sent the wrong letters out.
That's hilarious.
I'd actually been accepted. So that was over the moon.
Right.
So yeah, that was.
So had you got a letter saying you didn't get the job, or you just didn't get a letter at all?
I didn't get a letter. I didn't get a letter, and then no, she did. She did. So, and then when I started, that was when Linda took us through like a whole induction.
The infamous The
amazing.
infamous 4 days of Linda's induction. It was incredible.
It was amazing. It was fantastic. Loved that. Yeah.
I quote some of it. I quote most of it. Alan and Linda's one to this day. There's just bits of it where you just always, and it's funny. I tell clients about it, and you see their eyes light up because it resonates as much today as it did then.
Yeah.
That's for another podcast though, because I'm going to get Linda back in to talk about that. But
Yeah.
so I'm not going to give all the secrets away.
I mean, the things that stay with you, you know, the floor.
Yeah.
She would give you the eyes.
Aye.
Sweep up that section, and I do that all the time.
Yeah.
You
Talk
still
my
do it
latest
all.
stylist,
Yeah.
and it's great because it's like passing the buck up to your parents and just go, wow, if Linda Stewart saw you doing that and style drying before you'd swept the floor, you'd be getting murdered, you know, as opposed to I'm telling you to do that, but it's not actually coming from you. It's coming, still coming from Linda and Alan. It's great.
Yeah.
And still pass that up. So obviously then, so starting in 15 creates, Janine becomes Coco.
I do. I was actually Buchanan Street I started in.
All right, so you started in B Street.
I actually started in Buchanan Street.
And, and obviously the name. So
yes.
you're the first of the directors that we spoke to in the timeline that obviously has got a stage name.
Yeah.
So what's the story? What's the story behind that?
Right. So I believe there was an assistant that worked in 15 Royal Exchange Square, and she was called Janine.
Right.
And obviously that's my name. So I had to come up with a stage name.
Right.
And I had actually picked India.
Right, okay.
But Alan said, no, there's an India Miller. You can't be in India. I went, right, okay. And then Coco came. I think we were actually going through all the perfumes. I think there was a Paris and there was a Coco.
Is that how did you go through them all?
Because there was a Paris as well, I'm sure.
Thankfully it wasn't Brut.
Yeah, I think we did. Well.
Old Spice, like what?
Old Spice. So Coco was born.
Brilliant. And the legend there was made.
Oh,
That's for sure.
My poor dad couldn't get over that one. Coco?
What's that? Coco for Coatbridge.
Coco for Coatbridge, that's it. I know.
It is one of those, like, explaining it to clients, the idea that the concept's right, you know. It's like, I've got an appointment with Claire. Which Claire? The one with blonde hair. Well, they all had blonde hair last month.
Yeah.
Some of them have now got blue hair, red hair, and it was long. Oh, they've all got short hair. You know, it's different now, obviously, if you were booking online and your wee picture and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, we're going back to the dark ages of telephones and, you know, all that, and looking up the Rainbow Room number in the yellow pages, you know. So, obviously, you had to be that recognisable straight away, you know. And nobody's ever joined called Coco that's had to change their name. So at least nobody's
that's
ever.
It kind of suited me at the time, I suppose. Everything was very dark.
It suits you now.
Like, you know, you know, with the dark hair, because my hair was always black and
Queen of the Gods.
That's it.
It's actually quite interesting. That's another thing. It's just like that kind of whole segment of gothdom that Rainbow Room had between you and David and stuff like that, and Carol and Violet and all those kind of crew were all. Right. It was like, you know, that way. It had to be white, angry boys and tight jeans and dark hair if you wanted to listen to any of the music.
I think
coming in with my Jackson 5, my Prince records like that, giving it. Wait a minute, cheer up, everybody.
Exactly. And I do think that a lot of people. Maybe that was the reason for going, you know, having that image as well, is that I was quite, I don't know, I wouldn't really say shy, but I was quite insecure about a lot of things, and that sort of image, you know, it was like, whoa.
Don't talk to me.
Yeah,
Keep away.
So people, I think, it came across that I was more confident in what I was. So that was probably quite a good thing while I was working on that kind of whole side of it.
To build it up.
And also, and then of course when we started and learning about consultations, it just wasn't, I'd never done anything like that before, you know, really understanding, which then gave me the love of books. Because Alan
Linda, such huge readers.
Yes, and then that was when I one of the first books that I read was Awaken the Giant Within, Anthony Robbins. And wow, what a book. Yeah. And I went years and years. I would go over it again
Go
and
back to
again
it.
because every time there would be something else happening in your life at that time or your career, and it would just help you to go in the right direction.
It's amazing that obviously they were huge in Dale Carnegie. And
Yes,
how it
absolutely.
influenced people,
Yep.
you know, Jonathan Livingston Seagull and
Yep.
all that kind of thing. And
Yeah.
they did, you know, they kind of they put them into you, and you were allowed to read it at your own pace. You weren't necessarily having to, you know,
100%.
because obviously 90% of us
Yeah.
are probably dyslexic and on all various spectrums. So sort of reading was maybe not our first love. But all that education that they did was amazing, and that actually was bringing me to my next question, because so you've started in B Street.
Yeah.
You've had college education, you've had various salons, and then bang, here you are in this,
Yeah.
you know, 25 section, huge salon, first
Scary.
floor in B Street.
Yeah.
Obviously, in inverted commas, the flagship salon of the brand, 'cause it was the first one.
Yeah.
How different was the change from what you were doing hairdressing wise and management wise and education wise to then being in there?
Well, the salons that I was in before, it was all very much do this, do that. It was never at a point of actually really teaching you. Ooh, what's what I say here? But do you know what I mean? Is
mentorship maybe the right
yeah,
thing?
I think that was it. It was just a case of, you know, I think if they could have got away with just having you at the backwash, rins and perms all day, that would have been it.
Yeah.
You know, there didn't seem to be anything more than that.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas when I joined the Rainbow Room, it was very much education from day one.
Yeah.
Well, even before I started, you know, the education with Linda
Yeah.
on exactly to give you a picture of what your expectations were in the company, what the company believed in. So I think the difference was I've lost my train of thought now.
Aye.
I think the difference was that yes, everybody.
Like they had
I'm trying to think how to say this.
they had a role, a position, a plan?
Yeah, that's it. There was systems.
Yeah.
There was all these systems in place that made it easy to learn and not feel like you were out of place. You know, so when you were an assistant, you had this was your role within the company. And then if you were a stylist, this is what the expectations were.
Yeah.
The door was always open, so it was always easy to go in and ask if you were, you know, you weren't sure about anything. And the training was there as well. And one of the people that made quite a big impact was like Tina at the time, because she was there. I'm terrified of her. Like she was,
as we all were.
she was scared. She was this height, but you know, she was just so methodical about. She actually taught me how to do foils. Like she was so meticulous in everything that she did. So yeah, everybody. There was no. We're all there to help each other.
I think the thing that you hit upon that was huge is that open door bit, and that at any time, wherever you were at, whether it was in your private life, in your own life, your financial life, and your hairdressing life, if you were stuck, there was somebody asking, and it wasn't necessarily that you had to go straight to Alan and Linda. You know, you could kind of go up the chain and speak to them and go, oh, I need a wee bit of help with this, or I'm struggling with that colour, or whatever. But the minute Alan and Linda got it, it was, you know, well, bosh, the book would come out, here's your training plan, this is what you need to do, and come to me when you've done X, Y, and Z.
That's it.
And they always did that, and I would hope that it's the one thing that everybody knows fine well. I mean, I laugh when anybody new joins a company and they chap the door in my office when they come up the stairs. And I'm like going, you shut the door for? You don't need, it's only shut because it's a fire door. You know that way. That's the only reason. That's the only reason it's shut. You know, I mean, I would hope that anybody would. I would feel that legacy has been passed down from where we were at. So kind of, I'm always really interested in that kind of zero to actually. Right, I'm part of this now. I'm in with the bricks. So kind of, what was your timeline for building your clientele and getting yourself sort of stable in B Street at that point?
Well, I was I started in the May, and I think by the end of that year, I was promoted from stylist to senior stylist, and I don't know what happened to me. And then I decided I left. You know, I think I do. I think the reason was now when I look back on it, because it takes you years, doesn't it, to understand exactly what's going through your head. I think for me, again, it was back to that kind of, and I'm thankful for Alan and Linda for this, because I think they seen more potential in me. They seen potential in me where I necessarily didn't.
Right.
So I think it got too hard, and I think when it got too hard, I bailed.
Wow, right.
To be honest with you, I think actually I got a bit scared. Yeah. And
what was hard?
I think the figures. I think the understanding of the and keeping that going, and I think it was a fear of failing at it as well. So I took an easy option and I went somewhere else. But I definitely needed to do that, because I then realised, wow, what have I done?
Really, was it an eye opener?
Oh, it was like, what have I done? Mm-hmm. You know, you're getting all this education, all this training. What have you done? Yeah. It was a crazy moment. But anyway, I was very fortunate that I came back. And when I went to 15 Royal Exchange Square, I think that's really where I found my people. Because, and it's not that they weren't in Buchanan Street, it was very different.
Yeah, they were very different salons. For all that they were the same and the same brand and the same ethos and all that, they definitely had a different vibe.
Absolutely. My head was still in looking at, what Russ were doing, or, what Sassoons were doing, Trevor Sorby, all these, and I wanted to be like that. Yeah. When I went to 15, it was completely different. Because everybody in there was all part of the artistic team, and they were all, it was just amazing. And I just fitted in. It became a really comfortable place to be. Yeah. And when was 15.
And when was this?
So that would have been. That would maybe have been about, 91? Right. Would it? 92? Yeah. Maybe later, I can't remember now.
So the 90s are a blur for all of us for various reasons.
Actually, I can't remember. When it was.
So in there, and kind of under the mentorship of Linda.
Yes.
Kind of, did you go back in at senior stylist again and then work up from that level again as well?
Did.
Yeah. And just from that point,
flying. And then I really got involved in the art team as well at that point. But again, it was just, I think it's obviously the people are really important that you work with as well, and they were very like-minded. Yeah. So it was. And Linda's just she's so calm, and so controlled in everything that she does, but she's very easy to understand as well. So you would ask her a million questions. She loved that. It was always like, how do you do this? What does this mean? How do you do this? She always had time to actually speak to you about.
Do you think the uniqueness of 15 being that the staff room in Linda's office were basically kind of one and the same, and that you were in that wee staff room trying to cut through the cigarette smoke?
Oh, that was so bad.
It was like a nightclub, wasn't it? It was like a smoke machine in the 80s, and you'd get through, and invariably the door would just be opened. You would just, if if they were ever in there,
Yeah.
if Linda was there.
Uh-huh.
And I think that was probably slightly unique as well, whereas you could scoot by Alan's off, you could get by him,
Yeah.
you could get away from him.
Yeah, you would go the other way.
You could go round
Like, oh, I've not done my
know,
retail this week.
know,
I'm going round
I've
the
gone round
long
that way.
way.
And I'm always sure that's why
Yeah.
I'm always sure that's why you put the call box. Here's a history lesson, children. No mobile phones. We had a pay phone
Yes.
in the staff corridor
We did.
that we were able to phone from, and it was right outside Alan's office. So I'm pretty sure he was listening to everything we were saying, and planning our night outs or the morning afters or whatever stories he was getting. But I think the other thing that was probably pretty unique about 15 at that period of time was actually you were all similar ages. It was quite a young, cool team. But we're also walking the talk. Buchanan Street was always quite a spread of sort of, I laugh now because obviously they're all now younger than I am at this point, which is kind of slightly soul destroying. Right? But there was always a widespread from kind of new kids on the floor to Alan and Linda and Berdetti and Tina and that crew, and then the kind of middle gang, especially when I qualified. So there was always felt like they were these other kind of hairdressing gods that you were trying to attain to. Whereas I think the one thing that was always really cool about 15 was, like, again, for me growing up in the generation after you guys, you were all those hairdressing gods and they were all cool as hell. You were all kind of the same age and gang and group and everything, And I think that was probably pretty unique at the time.
Yeah, it was. I mean, because, again, there was never a finishing time. I loved that. It was always like you were always there. You always had models out. In fact, we used to go over to Buchanan Street as well and do stuff like that as well. And you'd be getting the last train home at night, 11 o'clock at night, because it was just great fun, like trying out different things, and that was fun. I loved that. It's a bit different now. Yeah,
I think. I mean, we can go into that, and there's all the reasons why people blame all the youth of today and all that. And it's 90% of that's got actually nothing to do with any of that.
It's just a different world.
And it's a different world.
It's
been legislated away from as well, so we can't even promote that kind of camaraderie because it can actually come back and bite us in the face as employers. So we've got to be really careful with all that kind of stuff. But it is to the detriment of the craft.
Yeah.
But if that's the game now, we've got to play to the rules. We've got to figure out how to do it. But we struggle with it. But certainly that was amazing. So you've got the likes of David, you've got John, you've got yourself coming through that salon. How was building your clientele in 15? Was it pretty organic? I mean, again, we're in the position where we were getting, we were the salon to go to, we were the brand to go to. For as much as we did do self-promotions and recommend to friends and all that kind of stuff, we kind of didn't really need to. I mean, the sheer amount of new clients coming through. But what do you think at that point of your career moving forward was key to you keeping your clients? For as much as you were getting the opportunity of lots of new clients, but you were one of the people that you kept them, and and you've still got them probably.
I think it's just down to the way that Rainbow Room works. I mean, I always remember we get taken through the whole Kaizen, which was like, what is this? You used to go away on holiday and come back and what's he going to come up with now? It's the way he does, isn't it? It's like, but it's just everything is just about everything that I learned was put into place. I didn't forget that, and I constantly practiced and learned my consultations. Always about giving clients the best shiatsu, treating every client, even if you've done that client for 10 years, that shiatsu should be as good as the first time they've ever had it done. Yeah. All these things, I was always interested in who my clients were. It was always about, I always learned, know your clients, know where they come from, what's their lifestyle like. It's important for the client to know what's happening with their hair outside the salon as it is in the salon. We can all do a great style dry or and get it looking fabulous, but does the client know how to do that at home? That was a big learning thing. That changed things as well, because all of a sudden it was about, we care about your hair when you're not with us.
Yeah.
And that whole education. So I do believe that that's massive on your clients.
Huge.
Being able to, always making, I think as well, one of the big things was actually, you know, encourage your clients to complain.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
You know, that, you know, how you were saying to me just to come back, you know, that wee fringe part's not sitting right. I think that's a massive thing for clients, because if you listen to clients like way back, they'll say, oh no, I just wouldn't go back and complain. So they go somewhere else. So it's building that actual confidence in your client to be able to come back and say, oh, you know, that was no problem, we'll get that sorted, we'll change that up for you. So it's these things that make the difference. That's what brings your clients back.
And obviously you're kind of at that birth of the Kaizen meetings and all having to come in and do that kind of thing. But the thing that I hope comes out of this, and whether you're a young person wanting to join Rainbow Room and you're watching this thinking that it's what you want to do, or you're a young team member or a new team member to the brand, is how important shiatsu is to us.
Absolutely.
And how we've all grown up with it. As I call it, our Big Mac, because it's our thing and we've ran with it, and people have either tried to copy it or not bothered their shirt or called it something else or whatever. And you know, it's that thing you learn at the start and you just, oh well, I've done that now and I'm on to this next thing. And it's just, never underestimate the power of that amazing head massage on that client. And then obviously all the avenues that it opens up, because you can discuss hair texture and hair condition and scalp condition and all that kind of stuff. You know, I mean, how many people have we found out that aren't having a good time just because their scalp tension is so tight? And obviously, time of recording, we're not long back from Japan and get to see how passionate they were when we went to their head massage place. But the bit I loved was the fact that they were kind of freaked out that we were asking the right questions.
Yeah.
You know, that way they're kind of looking at us as if to say, right, actually, wait a minute, they're coming at this with a bit of knowledge, and then telling them, oh, by the way, we've been doing this for 40 years, you know, but it's just our clients are now lying down, they're sitting up, and the body angles are different. But even at that, there was things that the guys were doing in Japan that kind of I forgot about and go, oh, well, actually, I was taught that 35 years ago, and I'm not, you know, even just that moving with your whole body instead of staying still. I'm like, of course, you know that way.
Yeah.
You know that way. So that was really interesting. So yeah, that's one of the things that getting that from, and everybody has talked about it. There's no doubt about it, but it is one of the things that, you know, we had it written on our back for a reason. You know, we were the shiatsu team, and it was so important to give that. When we're talking about training, Alan and Linda talked about the idea that, you know, they were getting actors in to teach.
Yep.
So
we did.
Obviously you talking about the fact that you kind of, initially there was that self-confidence thing and not feeling confident, you know, either in yourself or portraying yourself properly. Did you find all that stuff make a huge difference as well? Yeah,
it did. Absolutely. But I think the biggest thing for me was going on a stage.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, every time I'd be sick in the morning, it was awful, but I had to do it because I loved the feeling when I came off.
That's amazing.
More than actually.
And was that in your brain from when you'd went down to Salon all those years ago with Roberto? Yeah. Was that just that kind of? And what was your first opportunity of getting to do that within Rainbow Room?
Oh, now, I think if I remember right, we went to a college to do a talk. And I mean, when I think about it now, it's quite funny because it wasn't a big, massive thing, but it was the first time. I always remember Alan saying, Coco, stand with your back against the wall and just breathe. And I remember thinking, it's not working. But I always remember the feeling of coming off.
Right.
And that was the buzz.
Right. I'm now going to store that. Now I know this. After all these years, I can't believe that's what your trigger was, and I could have just said that to you at the start.
It's like when this finishes, I'll go, this
was amazing.
it's just getting.
I can't believe I've learnt this now after all this time.
No.
That's hilarious. So, and then when was your first kind of London thing? Was it Salon or was it alternative? What was kind of your first?
Alternative.
Was it?
So, there was like David and Alan and Linda. There was a big art team at the time. So to get to do here was, you start at the bottom and you work your way up. Absolutely, I will do anything. I'll do anything to get there. So it's you're making the teas, you're looking after the models, fantastic, and of course Linda had everything. Our itineraries were to the second, amazing. So we had to be here. We knew exactly what we were doing, ironing the clothes, whatever. And then they had a makeup artist called, was it Dorian? I think it was Dorian. Linda will correct me on this, she'll remember. And I started watching her doing the makeup, and I thought, right, I want to keep coming and doing things like this. So I started learning how to do makeup, and I would help her.
That was your channel then?
Out as well, because you would always have in the alternative usually about eight or nine models. It was quite a lot of work. And then I think now they only do one show.
Right.
But back then, I think they did two.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think talking to the guys, because everybody got a different shot of going on stage and stuff.
That's right. There was two, and it was in the Hippodrome.
Yeah. Which
was great because it was kind of like there was a great atmosphere in the Hippodrome. Yeah. Everybody, it was almost like as if the audience were kind of like on top of you, so there was a real buzz.
It's
and
a proper old school London theatre.
You can imagine all those hairdressers. Yeah. It's just like, wow. Yeah. So, I loved that.
And was that still round about the same time as Salon International as well?
So still, the alternative would be the big finale, and obviously it was all for leukemia research. All the money that was raised, so you would have all the great hairdressers there on stage. You've had Susuns, there was Burlingtons. I loved their shows because they were just fun. They always used great music, and I remember they brought out this old couple once, and they've had the full. He had his tux on. It was like proper old school, and they waltzed about the dance floor, and then the next thing these kind of like punky haircuts all came out, and I love this.
Superb.
I love this. So I really enjoyed.
It's really interesting actually. Everybody's got an angle into the art team, and it was never. I turned up and I started cutting hair. It's like everybody always was. Well, I did a bit of this and I did a bit of that.
Do a wee bit of everything.
I joined because I was the only person that could work a video camera. That's how I get in.
If you want something enough, you'll find your way in.
And it's all that thing. And then it was all going to mix the colour up, and then it was going to wash it off, and then it was actually, do you want to start drying that? And actually, going to just what are the ends like, and and you would just
exactly. And I loved it because. Everything, obviously when you're doing stage work as well, it's or like a show, it's always the obviously with the technology they've got now, it's different. But back then the makeup always had to be really exaggerated. Yeah. So I was in my element. I was doing like big eyebrows, wings out to here. It was just it was great fun. Yeah.
I think as well the other thing that I think ties us with that kind of thing in the hair shows is again music. Because you built the show around, you kind of. I know myself, if I've ever done anything that's either I've been in charge of it, or I pick the tune first.
Yeah.
And then for me, then that decides either the theme, the hair, the clothes, the attitude of the performance, or whatever. But it was always tune and then everything down. But I know a lot of when, especially with alternative, you could see the influence of movies. Or you could see the influence of a particular designer, or you could, whether it was music again as well. And there was very much an obvious theme, but not like you then did a parody of the thing. The theme was in there, but it wasn't just like, well, we're just going to do a carbon copy of that thing.
Absolutely.
And I think that was always really fantastic. So, of all of your sort of journey within Rainbow Room, and especially with the art team, is there an absolute moment that was like, right, well, this is as good as it gets when it comes to that kind of stuff?
I know what you're asking. I was going to say
it's a bit obvious, but we'll go there anyway.
It's got to be, hasn't
Yeah.
it? Yeah. I mean, obviously the Flip show was just great, wasn't it? I mean, it was. I think it's just the story behind it.
Yeah.
You know, what had happened was our annual congress. Alan had this idea that we would put on like a little show. So there was the three of us. I think there was like myself, there was Luke, and there was Joanna. And we decided, well, they had decided we would, Alan said, try and find something that will change.
Yeah.
Like you've got 3 minutes and it needs to be really quick. So you want a quick changeover in the hair. What would work? So Joanna and, well, Luke, being Luke, was a master with pins and whatnot and putting hair up, decided, well, what we'll do is we'll just put pieces into the hair and we'll extend it so it'll go from short to long. And, like, I just thought, oh, God, I can't do that.
Yeah.
I says, oh, no. I says, that'll take me too long to do that. I was really worried about it. So I decided to put a piece of colour on one side of the hair.
Wow.
Like, so, like, on dark hair, and it was one of my wee clients, and she was always up for it, and she always had a really nice little kind of graduated kind of bob shape. And I bleached it up, and I put a crazy colour on it underneath, and I hid it. And I thought, I'll just do that, it's dead easy. Yeah, I can live with that. Because again, it's back to that on stage. Oh my God, in front of everybody that you work with, I just don't think I can cope with this. So I need to do something.
I know working in front of Rainbow Room teams actually
100%.
usually scarier. Like the Congress
100%.
art team shows were usually scarier than being on stage at Salon, isn't it?
So that's how it came about.
That's
Was actually from that Congress. And then Alan and Linda said, we need to take that to the alternative. That would work. So,
but it would work, but there's a slight issue in the rules, isn't there, when it comes to the alternative? In that,
well, yeah. So
only there to be broken.
Yeah, only there to be broken. So yeah. So instead of putting 6 models on the stage, there was 3 models and 3 hairdressers.
Yeah,
but we were kind of like models in the sense that
because you weren't allowed to have hairdressers on stage.
On stage,
you were only allowed to have.
Really,
models.
We were classed as models.
Yes.
At that stage,
Yeah.
the only difference was we actually put brushes up inside our jackets because we had suits on. That's what it was. But see, even before it got to that stage, I mean, this is what made that show so unique. I always remember when Linda had got the choreographer to start working on it, and we're starting to work on music. It was actually Linda and John that had seen a movie. Now I think it was Single White Female,
right?
And it was Feel Good.
Right, so they
And
needed
they
some
came
on
in,
track
and I
from
remember
there.
we were in 15 at the time, and they both said, "Did you watch that music? Ah, I seen that. I heard that music. That music would be amazing."
Right.
So it was actually Linda and John between them that had heard this music, thought it would be perfect.
Yeah.
So, but then it was convincing Alan.
Really? Yeah.
Oh, we had to convince that. We were all on the phone to him. No, Alan, the music's great. And he wanted to use a kind of classical piece. I mean, no, this would be great. This would be great. So eventually, we nailed it with the music, and that was done. And then
Can't imagine it. That's all you know the tunes right, because you could
that-
never imagine it without that.
But that music made that show.
Yeah. Oh, completely.
That
You
music
just does the
made that
down,
show.
the pace and everything, and then the way you all moved with it.
It was the build up.
Yeah.
It was it came to that big sort of build up at the end where we kind of took the brushes out. We stood in front of the models. I think the crowd were like, "What are they doing?"
Yeah.
And we just swept the hair across. So when we stepped to the side, you just got this blue, red, and purple hair.
Oh, it was amazing. It was amazing. It was that you mean I can remember you all having to practice get
Yeah.
the brush out the sleeve
Get the-
and
yeah,
get that,
that's-
that we were
that's
kind of
it.
trying to come up with ways of how can we have that in like
Yeah.
a little holster or something that these vent brushes could
It
get,
was
could get flicked
unbelievable.
out.
And the funny thing, there was a funny thing happened, right? So, well, it wasn't funny for the girl. We had this other girl. Now, but there was only one professional model you had.
Yeah.
The other two girls were actually just girls that. Oh no, they were. One was a client.
Got you.
And there was a wee problem with her hair when I looked places. So I remember him phoning me up and saying, "Yep, the blues it's lying on the salon floor." I'm like, "Oh no!" So we couldn't use her.
Before fibre clinics.
Now this was the day before we were going to London to do the show.
Wow.
You honestly couldn't make it up.
Heart attacks.
So, the girl that was actually modelling for us, she actually had her, I think at that time she had her own agency.
That's right, yeah.
And she got this other girl, but so everybody went down to London and I stayed and I bleached her hair and then I put blue underneath it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we came down on the train later on that night.
That's hilarious.
And then she had to learn all the steps
Choreography, of course.
in the corridor of the hotel.
That's mental. And the thing was, it was quite because there wasn't so many of you on stage. It was pretty choreograph heavy to fill the time, wasn't it?
It was, and but she done it.
Nailed it.
She nailed it, and I'll never forget standing at the bottom. Oh, it's like so in the Hippodrome, you come up on a lift.
Brilliant.
And I'll never forget that feeling when it just sort of jumped and I thought, there's no turning back. There was moments where I wanted to just slide right off it. I thought, I can't do this. And when you get up there, there is like, you can't see.
Yeah.
Because we had like, I think it was like spotlights.
Yeah.
So we had 3 seats. The models went out. You could feel them walking away from you and you're standing there going, oh, I'm on my own and I don't know where the other 2 are. I can't see a thing. I'm just going here. But apparently we did it and it was amazing. But when that show finished, I have never heard anything like it. It just went nuts.
Yeah. And did you clock, because I think one of Alan and Linda's proudest moments in that show was the fact that Annie Humphries just exploded off her seat and was going mental at the front.
I mean, all the years of loving her work, watching what they do, and she's actually standing up. I mean, what a moment.
No, you can't.
What a moment. But that was totally unique.
Yeah.
You know, at the time, it was just everything of that show was right.
It was just right.
It was
just right.
Everything, but the music.
Well, that's back to what we talked about, is you pick the tune and work your way back.
Element of surprise, really, wasn't it? So
it was worth breaking the rules for, and it was a classic.
Yeah.
Some people have claimed that it was their idea and this, that. I've watched people in breakfast television talking about how they'd come up with this flip hair idea and all that, and you're sitting going...
I think it's like anything, isn't it? We're all inspired through the years and the generations, and it's just, it's your take on it.
Well, Crazy Colour ended up using it as their advert, so we're claiming it, we're taking it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, so on that note, what we're going to do is we're going to end podcast 1, because your journey doesn't get much better than that. You've joined the brand, you've ended up in the art team, you've worked your way through the ranks, you're kind of at this really high level, and then we're going to start with kind of other monumental bits of your life leading up to you opening your salon, but we'll go through that with podcast 2. So listen, thanks very much. That was amazing, Coco.
Pleasure.